Today? Yeah, I think too many people have asked you that question so far. So I'm going to ask you something different. How many of us want to go pee? Okay, a couple of people. How many of us are hungry? Oh yeah. So today, at this point in time, I stand between you and your food. Oh gosh, that's a tough place to be in. So before we start, I want to kind of dismiss a little bit of the curiosity that I'm sure a lot of you have. If you're wondering who is this white guy that's here, let me kind of dispel some of those misunderstandings. I'm actually an Indian, and I was born in Mumbai. How many of us have been to Mumbai or know Mumbai, to some extent? Okay, very nice. So I grew up in India a little bit, and then I grew up in the U.S. some more. And I've been back in India for about 6 years now, and ever since I've been back here in India, I've had the time of my life, really, especially with the rickshawalas. The rickshawalas in Mumbai are like a different species altogether. Oh my gosh, I'm kidding you. I'm not kidding you. They have like the most interesting responses. The other day I wanted to go to Goregaon or something, and I said, this was a while back, thank God to Uber, but this guy was in the rickshaw, and I said, I want to go to Goregaon, and he did one of these. You know what that means, right? You got to be able to understand gesture. You got to be able to read body language. I mean, that's a skill. You need that skill in order to understand what that rickshawala means to say. The other day, I think I misunderstood him. He did this, and I thought he meant yes, and I was about to get in, but this guy left. So I've had one too many of these experiences. And but Mumbai and the whole world, for that matter, is changing rapidly. It's changing so fast that it's not what we thought it was 5 years ago, or even 5 or 7 years ago. What we expected this world would be today is very different from what we wanted it to be. You could just imagine what it would be like in the near future as well. And as we live our lives, the whole app world is kind of taking over. Does anybody agree with what I'm saying? Yes, absolutely. The app world is taking over, and every single day there are new apps that are being released in the marketplace. The mobile industry is booming at a level that we can't even fathom. I mean, just to give you some statistics around this, in October of 2012, we were at about 700,000 apps in the Google Play Store. Today, or here recently, we're at over 2.5 million apps. That's a lot of apps. That's 3 times the number that we started out with only less than 8 or 10 years ago. And by the way, the words only and 8 years or 10 years don't go together anymore, because the world around us is rapidly changing faster than we can imagine. Here, a recent survey done by a Burning Glass organization, which is a survey organization, says that in the United States, the highest paying jobs are for coders, people with coding skills. So what that means really is that if you want to make a lot of money, you better learn how to code. And that too on the double. You better learn how to do that like yesterday. But what's crazy about all this is the fact that how do we even know what languages are we going to code in? Because only, like I said, only and 8 don't go together anymore. 8 years ago, when I was working for a Fortune 500 company, and I was a business analyst, we were working on technologies today that are obsolete. And today there are technologies that didn't even exist back then. And as a matter of fact, they're mainstream. And that's what makes it even more dynamic. It's absolutely impossible to even predict what kind of technologies are going to be introduced in the very near future that are going to influence the way that we interact with the world that we are working in. Recent study and a recent survey also revealed that Ernst & Young, one of the first organizations to remove college degrees from an entry criteria. How many of us know this? Does anybody know this? A couple of people in here? Yeah? So Ernst & Young removed college degree as an entry criteria to get hired into their organization. Why? Because they believe, after having done their research, that a college degree does not equate to success. Wait a minute. I just realized that I'm in a college institution, and there may be consequences as I walk out of this room. But my point is not to point out the college or the institutions. I think the problem we're dealing with here is a lot bigger than just that. Let's say for a minute that even if colleges were to equip us to handle the various volatilities in the real world out there, what if they were able to do that? Despite that, we would still have a problem being relevant in tomorrow's world, because the technologies are changing so rapidly. What we live in today is known as the VUCA world, which the gentleman just mentioned. And if you don't know what it means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And this is the world that we live in today. This is what surrounds us every single day of our lives. A recent magazine, The Economist, said that we've got to become what we call the lifelong learners, because that's what's going to allow us to be able to influence the generations to come. And that's what's going to allow us to remain relevant in this changing world. This dynamic world where everything, all the variables, everything is changing constantly. And I'm not talking about e-learning programs or MOOCs or online courses. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about here is experience. What I'm talking about are experiences that really have the power to impact your neurological systems, that allow you to think differently, that allow you to give you new experiences that enable new realizations, and from them, allow new perspectives. What I'm talking about is an opportunity for you to live another life, a life that you didn't know existed. And through experiences, we can enable such an opportunity, wherein you can get into another person's life and you can see the way that they see the world. You can live the way that they live the world. And from that, you can gain experiences that give you new perspectives and dimensions in life. What I mean by saying this is that we need immersive experiences. Experiences that allow us to change the way we think. Now, we know that organizations and individuals are always learning things. We're always trying to learn new things, whether we have to or we want to, one way or the other, we're always learning things. But there's a gap, and the gap is this thing that I think a lot of organizations and individuals deal with, which is the learning-doing gap, right? I've learned something, but I don't know if I should apply it, or I don't know how I should implement this new learning that I've had, right? And this gap typically comes from having the fear of failure. I think one of the people earlier also spoke about this. Having the fear of failure, of what if I'm going to fail? Well, immersive learning or immersive experiences allow you the opportunity to not worry about failure. Where it says it's okay to fail. It's all right to fail, and it creates a fail-safe proof environment for you to live, try, fail, adjust, change the way that you're doing things, and then do it again. Change the ways that you're managing things. Imagine wearing a virtual reality headset, one in which you're able to live the life of somebody else, and you're able to fail even. So that hostage scenario that was given by another speaker earlier today. Imagine if you had the opportunity to put on a VR headset, wherein you can be immersed in that experience and you're handling a terrorist crisis. Would you think that you'd be more prepared to handle a similar situation in real life after having experienced that? Absolutely. Absolutely. Why? Because what you're doing simply is you're taking all these many years of lives, because in order to get to that situation, you will have had to live a certain amount of life. That's like taking 50 years of life and condensing it into 5 years of experience. And imagine if you can do that so many times over and over and over. Imagine what you could do with all the learning that you could have, all the experiences that you could gain in the process of learning various different things. And this expedites the learning process because we say it's okay not to fail. But the problem, I've been coming at this from purely a corporate or a learning standpoint. But the problem that we're dealing with is far bigger than that. The problem that we're dealing with has to do with global warming. The problem that we're dealing with has to do with honeybee extinction. The problem that we're dealing with has to do with pollution, whether of air, water, or everything else. The problem that we're dealing with is of progression. The problem that we're dealing with is of sustainability, survival, and evolution. That's the problem we're dealing with. And in order to deal successfully, counter these problems, we need to be able to think different. And everybody says, think different, think different, think different. But how do we actually think different? Thinking different doesn't happen when you wake up one day and you say, aha, today I'm going to start thinking different. It doesn't happen like that. It happens when we learn different. Thinking different will happen when we begin to learn different. And when we learn different, automatically it will influence the way we think. And the way to do that is through what we call immersive learning. Thank you.